This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fanslow. Once again, the eyes of the nation have turned to this tiny village in western Pennsylvania. Blah, 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 blah. There's no way this winter is ever going to end as long as this groundhog keeps seeing his shadow. I don't see any other way out. He's got to be stopped, and I have to stop him. That and more after a word from our sponsor, NAPA Autotech Training. NAPA Autotech's team of ASE Master Certified Instructors are conducting over 1,200 classes covering 28 automotive topics. To see a selection, go to napaautotech.com for more details. All right, I have a guest. That's all you really need to know.
What up?
I thought I could get him on here before he rebooted or got back off his sabbatical.
Gotta be quicker than that.
Yeah, from the Automotive Diagnostic podcast, which is now binary. I mean, a duo.
Have you ever dealt with a groundhog in real life? Like, have you had to catch one in a live trap or anything like that?
Badgers, but not a groundhog.
Okay. I was surprised by how vicious those were. That wasn't what I imagined in my head until I had one up close. I'm like, oh, okay, I could lose a finger here.
Well, yeah. My first encounter was with a badger.
I've never seen one of those.
Yeah, I lived on a farm, right? And our main barn had an area that was collapsed. My guess is if it was used as a milk house, so the main structure of the barn was fine, and that's where we put up hay, and the cattle were underneath a basement, so to speak, if you will, where they were fed. And there's a small area, and by small, I don't know. I mean, I'm going by, yikes, pre-teenage, maybe 15 by 15 area that had collapsed, and there's a badger in there, and I'd mow over in that area. Mowing at one point was using a push mower. Our yard was a few acres. There's a few weekends where it was my dad, my mom, myself, and my sister all push mowing together. Not one mower. We each had our own mowers. So I was over there, and luckily our dog at the time was, I guess the breed doesn't matter, but he's a German Shepherd. I could have got skun up pretty good, I think. Probably got some shots in my stomach. I think that's the protocol even still.
For rabies.
Yeah, but the dog took care of him. So it's kind of like watching some of those dogs with toys, and they're just shaking their heads. And
oh, yeah. Mine does that. Just that instinct to just kill.
Right. Yeah, lucky. Anyways, that's my story. That's about it. I got nothing else. It's about as exciting as it's going to get anyways. You didn't make it to Vision, though.
I did not. One of my employees was there. I don't know if you got a chance to say hi. Andrew was down there, but I was not there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you not going stuck me with Noah. So thanks a lot. I had to ride down with him, ride back.
Oh, geez. Who drove?
I drove all the way down,
all right,
which was a rough drive. I think he was happy not to have to drive through that crap. And then on the way home, I don't think I made it to Des Moines, but I started hitting the wall. I could just tell, I think I can find another gear. I think we could pull over to a gas station. I could just load up on something caffeinated that rhymes with Diet Mountain Dew. I would have powered through. But then you just kind of destroy yourself for the next day. He'd offered to drive a few times. Really, all he wanted was control of the radio. That's what he wanted. So then I had to listen to his music. I still hate country worse.
You hate country worse than his?
I hate country more than that. But that poppy, whatever, Arabic stuff, it's not for me, man. It's not for me. And then he's like, oh, this is a heavier stuff. You'll like this. Yeah, heavy would be like, for him is, I think, 80s hair metal. He's a blast. He is an absolute blast. I love that guy. I kid you not.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I don't know if this is worth talking about, but it bugs me, so I'm going to talk about it. On the way down, we stop at a gas station. I won't tell you which state. There's only
there's only so many you're going through. 3
to choose from. So anyways, we stop at a gas station, and turns out Noah loves gas station hot dogs. So, I fill up on gas, and he must have used the restroom, and then I go into the restroom and come out, and he's over there building his hot dog. It is no exaggeration. He is triangulated by 3 employees of this establishment. they're watching him like a hawk.
Really?
And I can't believe it. Like, I'm looking at them, looking at him like, really? So I walk over to him. I'm like, dude, you're being watched pretty closely. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. They must be really concerned there's pork in that hot dog. He's like, oh no, I read the ingredients. I go, I think they're concerned. They're really watching. And I'm trying to be loud enough that they hear it, because it's like, this is outrageous. And he wouldn't have noticed if I didn't say anything. So now I felt kind of bad for even saying something, but it's just like, it was so absurd to me that he just looks different than everybody else.
And you don't think it was just because he was building a ridiculous hot dog with like way too many toppings?
Well, that or they're watching him waiting for her to eat it, because they actually know that they just put all pork hot dogs on everywhere, even in the beef area. And they're going to watch him eat that and go, I don't know what the hell happens to him. Is he just, I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
Or that one hit the ground a couple times before it made it back on the roller. And they're all like, somebody's going to come in here and buy that thing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, it's good. I always enjoy going out to his shop, regardless of the car that I'm fixing. I'll get a few laughs out of it either way.
It was no short of entertainment.
How's the rest of vision classes and all that stuff?
It's just such a blur, man. Let's see. We got down there. Well, I really wanted to make it to this meeting. They canceled it due to the weather. Really tried to get there in time for that. And I guess technically we would have. So Wednesday night, we got down there Wednesday evening. I got to go out to dinner with Dan Baumhart, which is a big deal to me because I have not been able to do that for far too long. I mean, I used to talk to this guy multiple times. I still consider him one of my closest friends. Works for ASE. He used to own a shop in West Allis, Wisconsin. He went to Alexandria Technical College, which was a third-year program I've talked about. He went 10 years before I did. So John Thornton knew us both, knew about that we had both gone to Alexandria, and so he was very excited to introduce us, which he did at Guru School, Guru 2. And I would have to swag Cicera roughly 2004 maybe, and we hit it off immediately. So yeah, I got to have dinner with him. Then the next night went to a dinner with him and a larger group, people I haven't seen in a long time, or got to really sit down and chat with Joe Amaral, Travis Wolf, Kevin Looney. It was terrific to be able to do that. Andrew Sexton and I did the key class Thursday morning. Nobody threw anything at us this year, so I think that's an improvement. I don't know. I get a kick out of it. The reason we're talking about this is partially because of that class, and then other things outside of the class related to the class, kind of, which you guys will see. So that went really well, I think. All day Friday, did the hands-on Pico class over at the community college. Man, it was like 40-some people, 40-some attendees. I think we had 8 vehicles.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just one of the most satisfying classes I've ever been involved in.
Yeah, hands-on stuff is fantastic when you can make it happen, but obviously a lot more setup and work involved with it.
I don't know what that means, but yeah.
You just show up.
You have to have somebody co-teach it and do all the work. That's what I have Scott Schotten for.
You got to figure it out.
Right. Got to figure out how to ride coattails. Yeah, that was good. Let's see. Saturday afternoon, Tech Talks. Garrett Jacobson talked about HP tuners, and thought I knew it. Like, I thought I knew HP tuners fairly well. Not the tuning side, the scanner side. I thought I knew it pretty well. I was bragging it up. Find it to be a terrific alternative to another popular PC-based generic scan tool. It does many of the same things, if not all of them. It does things extremely well, and it's only like $400. And just forget about the tuning stuff. And he is a terrific presenter, super energetic, knows it inside and out. He did something most would never dare do. Live in class, have somebody that's never run the scan tool before go up in front of class and run the scan tool. And this class doesn't skip a beat. There's a lot of stuff going on there. One, balls. Wow. But he did it. It was great. Zeb Beard followed that up, and it was a tough act to follow, and Zeb did it with thermal imaging, diesel. He's absolutely hilarious and a terrific presenter. He could have yet another career beyond being a shop owner. The guy can probably do whatever he wants.
That's cool. I've heard a lot about that guy. I've never met him in person, though.
This would be technically my second time. I met him at Vision last year, and there was a guy presenting some diesel stuff, and really good presenting. Zeb had made the comment that, yeah, thermal imager is like my number one tool, my go-to diagnostic tool. I'm like, well, that sounds to me like you need to present at Tech Talks, somewhat joking, somewhat not. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, for a change, I only had 2 presenters this year, but it worked like gangbusters. After that, I said something to somebody and they threw me out. So yeah, no, it's good to go. It's a good time. What can you say? Getting to see people, the trade show, freaking AES Wave booth, man. You should have seen that. Not just the booth itself, but Friday night when I got there from the community college, so probably roll in about, I don't think it's as early as 5:30, 5:45. And the line is extending up one of the aisles, half a dozen booths away. It's a long line, dude. They have that booth well armed with knowledgeable people, not just AES Wave people.
Sure. Yeah, it's always hard to squeeze your way in there. Any of the booths that they have set up for that thing, it's always shoulder to shoulder with somebody.
Yeah, Brian Henry, Courtney Tracy's in there. And then, of course, idiots like me are wandering around. And then really smart people are also standing around, like Matt Hodges popped in and Kirk Holland, Eric Ziegler, and a booth away is Isaac Riddell and Keith Perkins, and across the way is Mike Christopherson and Ira Waldman. So there was no shortage of brain power.
The who's who.
Who's who. And then also, like, if you have a tech, Mike Miller was also in the AES Wave booth. There's just no shortage of somebody to answer a question, right? Like somebody had a question about pick the topic or pick the tool. There's somebody somewhere nearby to send them to. That question could be answered accurately by somebody that does it.
That owns like 3 of them.
Yeah, right? Like real world examples, like, and I don't know what that would be. You could make that up. You know, I'm looking at this meter. What do you think of it? It's like, that meter's nice, but honestly, for the money, why don't you look at this meter, or why don't you consider going in this direction? You know, maybe save money or maybe spend a little bit more, but get way more. That's what it's all about.
A little different than just hopping on the website.
A lot different, yeah. So yeah, it was a good time.
Probably next year.
They should do it more than once a year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I hope so. You could do a class, you and Tommy.
That'd be fun.
It could be the ins and outs of DPS. And I would like to be able to attend, so you need to have that on. We'll have to coordinate that.
I've never heard of such software, sir.
There's a rumor about it. I don't know. I've had it for a while. I've never used it. Guess I'm a loser.
No, it's tricky.
Yeah, it's nothing user friendly about it.
I also don't use it as much as I thought I would. So that's the tough part, is like, it's not like TLC where I'm every single day getting reps in with it.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of work where there's other means usually. We can do the same thing with much, much fewer steps or no steps. It just does it.
That sucks. I mean, there's probably some benefit behind it still, but like, you take some time and you figure something out the hard way, or so you invest a lot of time to figure out how to do something that, you know, couldn't be done. And it's like, I finally got it. I got this figured out, and it was worth all that work. And then like the next week, you know, some scan tool has a function that does the whole thing that took you hours and hours, or may even take you hours to do still, because it's a complex, take this module apart, do it at the board level. And now you just click a button. You're like, really? That skill is essentially useless. There's, you know, background skills that you're picking up, but I've had that happen several times, just where now I'm to the point I'm like, should I just wait a little while, and like GM will just say, yeah, we'll do use modules, no problem.
Right. Global 3, no problem. NAPA Autotech training sessions are being conducted day and night in a town near you. This training caters to every level within your organization, be it a mechanical assistant, a mechanical specialist, a technology specialist, or a driver safety calibration specialist. Imagine a one-stop shop training partner in NAPA Autotech that will lead your team to a path to greatness. Autotech's entry-level Build-A-Tech classes convert the untapped potential of your new hires into money-making mechanical specialists. Autotech's higher-level tech update classes introduce specialists to the world of ever-changing technologies, which prevents your shop from getting technologically stagnant. Remember, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. And, turning to the front of the store, the Autotech Service Advisor class is an awesome way to hone your client advocate skill set, ultimately benefiting the customer through an improved vehicle repair experience. But it doesn't stop there. Imagine an electric vehicle class that takes your specialist well past the mundane, yet necessary safety topics. Well, it's here. Autotech's EV-Ready Training is a week-long curriculum that takes participants through a hands-on experience involving hybrids and electric vehicles. The session kicks off with the use of PPE and proper tooling while touching on required OSHA regulations. Then, the students dive into the lab vehicles to gain knowledge of the common high-voltage components on EV and hybrid vehicles and their function. Attendees will be taken on a path exposing them to different electric vehicle manufacturers to compare component form and location. Additionally, information about Level 1 and Level 2 charging systems will be included, along with a quick look at DC to DC charging. The operation and maintenance of subsystems are explored, including the different modes of Tesla operations, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Commit to taking your business to the next level with NAPA Autotech training. A few episodes ago, I had talked about a couple of vehicles, namely a Jeep that shop had replaced the WCM and then using just straight auto, like a Maxis scan tool, neither of the immobilizer tools to punch in the PIN number, but the PIN number that they got from the dealer was wrong. And it just led to communications. And it's not just them. So I'm not picking on just a shop. Like, I see this nationwide, honestly, that not just immobilizer stuff. There's so many other things, but it's a whole new language. It's vocabulary. There's words and acronyms that get used that if you and I are talking, not saying like I can just talk at such a high level, but you and I can have a conversation about something and know what we're talking about, but somebody on the outside looking in may not have any idea.
Yeah. If I say TLC, you have an exact reference. If I say that in front of my girlfriend, which I did the other day,
she starts singing Waterfalls.
Yeah. Because I had somebody on the phone. I was like, oh, yeah, you could just do that with TLC. And she's like, did you just tell your employee to use some tender, loving care? I was like, no.
Right. But I mean, if I tell you about a car I had that I had to hook up, whatever, an IM 608 to pull the pin and then go to whatever NASDAQ to get the key code, cut it, and the bidding was wrong. And then I had to go back and leash it to get a different bidding. And then I added the key or registered it with the pin. You would know exactly what I said, even though I just, rattled that off way not the way we would a normal conversation because I'm just trying to make it up as I go. But that's essentially what...
It's Chinese to somebody who doesn't know even just that side of the industry, let alone automotive in general.
Yeah, or much more rare for me, but that would be, I got a pin, use it from the VIN using whatever website, and assuming legitimate. So, using my VSP, I got the pin based off the VIN, turned out to be wrong. So I had to rip the module apart, EEPROM it, and found it in one of the lines of hex inverted or something like that. You would still know what I was talking about. That's probably even stretching it a little bit. I can think of a couple vehicles where that would be true, but I guess it's the vocabulary end of it for immobilizer and ADAS.
Oh, dude, ADAS is ridiculous.
Right? It's hard to have conversations. It reminds me of like air conditioning when people are talking about the car needs a condenser and they just keep talking about the condenser and then they had to rip the dash apart to put a new condenser in. And then they're like, oh, that would be different. Yeah, okay. You meant the evaporator. Yeah, the condenser.
Yeah, the condenser. Yo, that's the thing is, in my mind, you get three different things here, all working against you if you're trying to figure this stuff out. You have just the regular terminology, which changes all the time. There's new stuff. And then there's differences between the scan tool and the service information and the parts department just for the terms. But then you have acronyms, like we talked about, where we're abbreviating things. And if you've ever taken a Perkins class, I won't ruin it, but he's got a good thing on acronyms that's worthwhile watching. And then you have jargon or like slang on top of that too. when you get into like just dealing with guys who do this all day long, every day, they'll call something else that isn't in the service manual, but it's nickname in the field, right? And so you're dealing with all of this stuff. And then, trying to get somebody from the outside world to do all this. My service writer, administrator, Mike, he's not from the automotive world. And shops are calling with this stuff. Like, I got an ape him. Now I got to tip him. And like, that's like the same thing to him. And he doesn't know what either one of them are. And but like trying to figure out all this stuff, it's crazy.
I just had like a Ford with the infotainment issues.
FCDIM, FCIM. Yeah,
exactly. And what has what? Because sometimes they don't have them all. Like if you got the touch screen, okay, it's going to have the FDIM and it's going to have an APIM and it'll probably have an APIM no matter what, but it may not have the FCIM and the wiring diagram might show it, but it may not actually have it.
Yeah. Or the scan tool shows it and it's not actually there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it for sure has the ACM and it might be on its own network like ICANN. So infotainment CAN, I think that's what it stands for. And it's a legit CAN, not to be confused with KCAN on a BMW, which is not really the same as in like terminating resistors and stuff like that.
Or GM LAN or...
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I was thinking about rattling off some of the vocabulary, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do, because we could be here all night.
Right. It's endless once you get into it. I will say ADAS is one where like I have to look it up because it'll be different on every single car. And then a system that you thought was called one thing on one brand, they change it the next year because maybe it like integrates something else that it didn't do before. Or, it could kind of like on Fords, I found the CCM, the cruise control module. It's there and it's always called a cruise control module, even if it doesn't have cruise control and just has emergency braking.
Yep. And you still have to calibrate.
Yeah, right. But it's the cruise control module, but you don't have cruise control, right? And the ADAS stuff, it's probably been the most challenging. If I was only on one brand, probably be different, but the non-standardization of that in particular. When I would teach at the college, we do OBD and OBD2 basics, right? And there's lots of standardized terms. And that makes it nice because you can go through this stuff and say, MIL and OBD and DLC and all that stuff, right? And hey, this is standardized. But when you get into some of these areas, like you say, immobilizer, yeah, you got to learn a whole nother set of vocabulary, just like you say. And I've never put any concerted effort into doing it. I just kind of do it on the fly and look up and try to remember. Is there any way that you keep track of all this stuff?
I think honestly, the immobilizer stuff is probably mainly, I talk about it almost daily. It's to the point where I'm doing something concerning keys or immobilizer, I think every day. Absolutely for sure every other day, but it's crawled up to every day. Something is being done with keys. Or I'm definitely talking to somebody about it. Keys, or I suppose something to do with modules, module repair or cloning or something of that nature. The terms are just now a daily utterance. And then ADAS, we're doing ADAS multiple times a day. Honestly, I don't know. A lot of times I don't use the manufacturer's acronyms or module names when discussing it. I keep it a little more on the generic side. Partly, I think I do that to keep everything as easy as possible for my advisors. And then also the collision shops, because I don't know, it's somewhat like what you're saying, but the struggle I have is, and it's not terrible, but this needs a camera calibration. Well, when you say it needs a camera calibration, to me, that means there's really only a few options. The windshield, maybe the cameras, in the grill and in the back and on the side view mirrors or something for surround view. It's a camera, but they mean radar.
Yeah, we get that too.
And then the flip side will be, we put a windshield in this, it needs a radar calibration. And depending on the car line, maybe, I don't think so, but maybe. If it's involved in some sort of a collision, then absolutely. But it gets dicey. And then blind spot cameras. The only car off the cuff I can think of with blind spot cameras was like Honda's Lane Watch.
Yeah, Honda had one in the side mirror. Had its own little target.
So those are really radar. Yeah, run into that a lot. Or the radars for parking aid. Those are ultrasonics. More, I hate to say sonar, but kind of more sonar-ish, where they're using sound.
We get those like, hey, we need a radar calibration, and it's the parking sensor calibration that is really what they're looking for. And yeah, it's just basic misunderstanding, especially when you're maybe just dealing with somebody at the front desk that isn't even working on the car that is calling about that stuff. We get that all the time with modules, and modules can get real tricky too, because, we're going to call like, hey, I replaced the computer on this car. Well, which one? Well, the computer. So you have to develop ways to get the information out of them, without being a jackass about it, but ask questions like, hey, where's this thing located? Or, the one thing we'll do is, hey, send us a picture of it, and then we'll help you out. But like, where's it located on the car? What does this do? But even then it gets tricky. Like you're saying with Ford infotainment stuff, like there's 4 different modules involved with getting sound to happen in a Ford. And like, we struggle with which one's which. The shop saying, hey, we replaced the radio. I would say half the time it's not the audio control module that they're replacing. It's the APIM, or it's the screen, or it's, infotainment is a whole nother one too. The names of control modules, even on a car, can be confusing. Like you get into some of these hybrid systems, or ADAS even. ADAS, actually, I've been getting beat up on that, where it'll be like ADAS module 1, ADAS module 2.
Nissan?
Yeah, Nissan sucks, man. They suck.
They're brutal.
What is that? The electric steering, the DAST? You ever dealt with that? That one, I actually wrote down on a document which module is which, because the scan tool is completely different than the service information. Completely different what you're going to see on the scan tool. And so I had to write it down, because I'm like, I don't even know, like there's no reference as to which module is which when you're just like hooking up with a scan tool, and it's a disastrous system to begin with. But yeah, I don't even know what the DAST stands for.
Doesn't always steer.
Yeah, good luck.
Truly, trustworthily. I don't know if that's a word. I don't know. I'm happy to have like factory tooling for Nissan. It's made it a little more tolerable. But I don't know if there's many car lines I have a distaste for servicing more than Nissan.
Mitsubishi or Subaru is up there with those two.
I don't see too many Mitsus. I'm pretty lucky there. Subarus, luckily, for the most part, I deal with the regular stuff, cylinder heads, and I personally don't do that. But
Dynamic Assist Steering System, which doesn't explain the T unless that's in steering. All right, well, whatever. Nissan, that sounds like something Nissan would do. Yeah, their service info is awful. Mitsubishi is awful.
Yeah, I see it with Toyota. A lot of it where they have to translate to English. And it just depends on who's doing the translations. And then whoever translates to like the service info, and then to the scan tool, and then to parts, they're not the same department. So you have different translators.
Yeah, trying to look up a module on like car dash part or something like that, where they're grouping 20 different types of modules on the car under one title when you go to search it. And so like you have to know, or here's another one. Do you use RepairLink?
Oh yeah, that's a must.
Yeah, fantastic website. But like you have to learn the search in that to find what you're looking for. It's not really intuitive. And what you put into that little search bar really changed the path that you go. As far as you can't just always put in the name of the part that you're looking for on there.
Yeah. And I try to be sympathetic. Like I get it. I don't like that they don't line up from one car manufacturer, the parts and the service and the training and whatnot. That should all align in the scan tool. But like listening to Tommy talking about translating some of the books he's done, it can be problematic because there's certain words I think we have that really don't exist. Or certainly don't mean the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's a struggle to find how to describe whatever we describe with one word or a couple of words.
Have you used Google Translate app on your phone with the camera?
Oh, a long time ago, it was really glitchy. It got good?
It's come a long way. So yeah, if I'm dealing with maybe some software or something that's in another language, or even as simple as something as, hey, the dash got changed to another language one way or another, you do Google Translate and then put it onto your camera. I think there's an auto detect for the language, but if you select the language, it makes it a little easier. And you just hold up your phone and it overlays it in real time in whatever language you want, which for me is obviously English. And it does a really good job. So I can like navigate through something that's all in Chinese or all in Russian or all in German just through like holding up my phone over it. It's pretty sweet.
I have some free scan tools that no, just kidding.
Yeah, right.
I don't. It'd be a good story if I did, but I don't. Yeah, but I think with the ADAS stuff, not trying to drive it back to that, I guess, but I think if you start thinking of things as what they are fundamentally, is this a camera that helps, if you're calibrating them, the conditions for what you need to calibrate, meaning lighting becomes very important. Also, interference in the background, or the type, maybe better yet, the type of interference in the background. You can't have a lot of light, dark shadowing behind the target because that could be viewed as a target. And then, radar, at least currently what we see for radar, I guess radar is going to be radar. I guess I was kind of LiDAR might become more and more of a thing. So that's maybe getting off on a tangent. We'll go back to radar. Radar is really just going to measure distance. Doesn't really give a rip about lighting.
Yeah. You can turn the lights off and it'll calibrate fine.
Yeah. And those are usually, and that's tough because some cars have them quite a few places. There's usually one in the grill area for adaptive cruise or emergency braking. And then we have the ones in the back corners, if you will, by say the tail lights, somewhere in that vicinity, maybe much lower, or maybe in the kind of the quarter area for blind spot, for the little indicators in your side view mirrors when somebody's in your blind spot. I don't know if I want to say luxury brands. That kind of seems to be the ones that have it. They'll have them up in the front fender area for pedestrian, cross traffic, stuff like that. Those are radar. And then the ultrasonics, if you take a stethoscope to them, or if you have fairly decent hearing, you can put your ear right up to them when you have somebody with the brake on and in gear. You can hear them click away. Very short range, not super, what would you say, high res or anything. It's just to keep you from...
Is there something there or not? Yeah, I always get funny looks when I pull out the stethoscope and start tapping on the bumper at shops. For techs that they're not aware that that's a check. They're just like, what the hell are you doing?
Listening to the heartbeat of the car. What do you think? What do you use a stethoscope for? Most of them don't really have calibration. Some of them will have a leveling procedure. It seems like some older ones had targets where you more or less test to make sure things are working rather than calibrate.
Yeah. The Ford parking sensor calibration, where it's just basically you get a PVC tube and set it up at a certain height. Have you ever looked up the service information on how to do that calibration?
I remember it being convoluted.
It's ridiculous. So I think Mike Reynolds actually has a video out there somewhere on it where he's kind of poking fun at this ridiculous diagram. But yeah, if anybody listening, I'll try to remember the year, like a 18 or 19 Ford Fusion parking sensor calibration. Like, look it up in service info and see if you can tell by that picture what you're actually supposed to do. It like makes no sense. It's like 3 circles and then like some weird ledge. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'll see if while we're talking here, if I can send it to you just so that you can see what the hell I'm talking about.
I guess surround view. One, there is no satellite looking down at the top of the car. It's not even a drone. And if there is, it's not for the purpose of your surround view or 360 view.
I do remember the first time I hopped into a car with that, and for a quick second, I'm like, wait, how are they doing this?
Yeah, those have a series of cameras on the outside, usually in the side view mirrors, usually in the grill, usually in the... Depends on where the license plate is, I guess, but usually somewhere in the rear center of the vehicle, trunk area or hatch. And then they use something called sensor fusion, where they splice together the images to make it nice and seamless, and then they have a stock image, if you will, of the top of the vehicle, and that makes it look like you have a bird's eye view. Sensor fusion can also be used with the blending. I think Tesla used to do it quite a bit with radar and camera, but they have since went to 100% camera, even if the car has radar on it. I think one of the updates just ignores it now. They don't use it. So a lot of like the pedestrian warning type uses sensor fusion where there's radar and cameras being used together to make accurate. I don't know if I want to say images, measurements.
Sure. And it wasn't Tesla's thing that they were going all cameras. I don't know if that's still the thing.
Yeah, 100%. There is a killer video just released by Mark Roper. Mark Roper is a engineer whose claim to fame was people would steal packages. So he'd built these machines with phone cameras, phones, I guess, taking video of it. That would have glitter, some sort of stinky spray, a fart spray.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen one of those videos where it like blows up on the...
Yeah, glitter bombs, or did he call them glitter bombs? Something like that, where he would trick people. That's kind of his claim to fame. And then he just released a video showing LiDAR kind of versus camera. So he has a Tesla. I don't know if it was a Waymo cab, but it's got the LiDAR on top, and it's nothing we see on production cars yet. Not like that. If there's anything with LiDAR off the cuff, nothing looks like that. Not a production car. So I think these are strictly for autonomous taxi cabs.
Gotcha.
And he put them through kind of a barrage of tests to see how well they would do. Just had obstacles, mannequins of kids to run over. LiDAR has very strong points. I can just see where you almost need combinations of all of them to be, for something to be autonomous, you're going to need LiDAR, at least from what I can tell. LiDAR, camera, all working together. But it's now maybe 16 hours old as we record.
Okay.
But I would definitely check it out. He goes into a little bit of explanation of what it is, LiDAR specifically. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great.
I sent you the picture on Facebook Messenger. It's the Azimuth, or I don't know if I'm saying it right. That's the picture that's in service info. It says, here's your setup. Like, yeah. But yeah, Reynolds has a pretty funny video that he did with that. I'm sure people can search for it and find it, but
he's got a terrific video. While we're at it, let's just freaking find it. And then I'll try to have the link. I think it's under his name. I think
we try to do some internal documentation of stuff that makes referencing some of these quicker, especially with modules. We kind of just made a spreadsheet and broke it down by, manufacturer of GM, Ford, Chrysler, blah, 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 and then different modules. And for us, it's also a reference of like, hey, what can we do used? What can't we do? This and that. But it's also just a helpful reference where we have the acronym, we have what the module is, and then some information about it so that, any of us, but especially somebody on the phone, who's not the technician working on it, can reference these things quickly right at their, fingertips. And it's in service information, but again, like I say, sometimes service info is different than the tool, different than the parts manufacturer. And so you got to know all of that or figure all that out. And it's a time suck sometimes.
So on YouTube, he has an account, Mike Reynolds, and the video's name is Revision 5. And I feel it is must see.
I haven't seen that one. I'll watch it.
Regardless of your level, I think for those that do not know much about ADAS, it's good because he's got some kind of an educational portion. And then he goes into discussing some stuff with a little more on the legislative side. And it's probably something we need to get involved with. So I have called my congressman, I've called my senators about this. This is a couple months old or so, maybe 1 or 2, 3.
Yeah. Okay. I think I did see this. It is definitely worth watching for sure.
I think hopefully I'll have a link somewhere. And what do they call it? The doobly-doo?
For the azimuth?
Yeah.
Yeah. The abstract art.
They had a Picasso wannabe put that together.
That was a guy like on Friday. They're like, hey, we need a diagram for this. It's like, okay, there you go. I got some circles there. Have fun.
It's not like they're going to do it anyways.
Right. Yeah. They're just going to click buttons.
They're just going to back it up to another car and see if it beeps. It worked. Ship it. That's how I test adaptive cruise control. Will it follow a semi? Yep. Ship it. Forget motorcycles.
Doesn't stop me before I rear end somebody. Okay, we're good. Have you ever had one that is so misaligned that it causes some dangerous situations? I've heard about it, but I've never driven one that's actually like that.
Twice. It's crazy. The first one was a week after I think Scott Brown had rented a vehicle to take to a class presented by David Friend, shop in Wilmington, North Carolina. I think he's got multiple shops, 2 for sure. But he put on an ADAS class, and Scott Brown rented, I think, a Nissan and took it there and noticed that it was misbehaving on the way. Long story short, it was a rental car, of course, but the radar was like pointed up at some absurd, I don't know if it was 45 degrees, but it was close, right? And it's like a week later, I get one just like that. And it was a Nissan, and it was a radar, and the bracket was bent, and mine wasn't nearly as bad, but mine would see semis, no problem, and big pickup trucks and straight trucks, if you will, but cars, little cars, and I don't even mean like, econo cars. I'm talking.
It's like a sedan. It's going to miss.
Yeah. I ain't seeing it. Just oddly enough. And then another one, not the main collision shop we work for, or do a lot of work with, I should say, but not them, but another one that we've done. They're starting to get more and more ADAS type stuff for us to deal with. One of the first ones they did, I think they replaced the bumper, and I had asked them if they had leveled the sensor or anything. And of course they said, yeah. And I don't know what they leveled it with or where they had the car when they leveled it. Like maybe they're at the motorcycle hill climb, and then that's maybe it was leveled to the ground with that. I don't know, but those are the only 2 I can think of that were that bad. We've had a couple of cameras, I guess, where the mount on the windshield was so bad you couldn't calibrate it to save your life.
Yeah, been there.
Off the cuff, I can't think of one where a camera was so bad it would cause the car to veer or track off the road. I would think I would remember something like that. So no, mainly the mishaps are radar related.
Sure. Yeah, there's a ton of freaking bent brackets and mounting and stuff like that. So it seems to be pretty good at coding most of the time, but obviously there's stuff out there that's not going to catch it. And
yeah, some blind spot, I guess, like Hondas where they mount. So behind the quarter panel, I wouldn't know what the part's called, but in between where the quarter panel is and then the interior of the car, and there's metal in there, it'll be just crumpled. And the blind spot radars mount in there, and you can have them in all sorts of angles. And the one is crazy to me. If you just had the bumper cover off, I think you could access them. Yeah. The bumper cover's off. If you were just to kind of eyeball them without what I will call the eyes or the sight, you probably wouldn't see it. And they didn't. And the only reason I saw it is because I have the Autel tool that measures the angles. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it.
yeah, like, oh, okay.
Right? When they got the bumper off, I was looking at it like, it's not what I was hoping for. Yeah, I was hoping for something just blatantly obvious, like the radar mounted wrong or pointed absurdly off. Okay, well, I guess when you're testing it, it is absurdly off, but just by a glance, no.
Those blind spots are tough because the 90 degree you can get just fine, use a level gauge, and that's easy enough. But the horizontal angle in relationship to the center line of the vehicle, I mean, they're almost all of them mounted at an angle that I can think of, but what is that angle? And sometimes that's not the easiest thing to find in service information. So yeah, that tool that you're mentioning, the Autel one, we're getting one made right now. I'm going to see how it works just because, I mean, you can spend the money on that tool, but I looked at what it was. I'm like, well, if I know a guy who does some machine work. We had a mat made and I'm going to see how it works. And if it's a success, I'll let you know. But yeah, we get a fair amount of that too. And it's probably the toughest one to verify that they're lined up correctly.
I would agree. I think the one I did before that involved way too much time, lots of lasers.
Yeah, plumb bombs. And
I got there, but this tool makes it way easier. And yeah, it was not cheap for what it is too, right? I agree what you're saying, like for what it is, but I'm also really lazy.
Yeah, that plays into it sometimes. Just like,
I said, hey, boss, is that Elvis? What? Ordered it.
You think he'd stop believing you after all these tools?
I think he doesn't believe me on anything anymore. Even when I say like, no, we really need it.
Okay.
Do we? Do we though? Do we really need it?
Do we need it or do you need it?
I beat around the bush a lot too. Like I buy a lot of less expensive. I don't want to say inexpensive, but less expensive tools like a collective. So, okay, it's almost like the old quote unquote old days where you buy all kinds of aftermarket scan tools to be able to do stuff like the factory tool would do. And then someday you just pony up and get the factory tool. That's kind of what I'm doing with all these other things with key programmers and EEPROM, readers, writing, key generators, all that. Someday I'm going to step up and buy like the real stuff.
Yeah, not before you spend all the other money on that stuff. Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I have all the other stuff first. And then one thing will come in. None of them will do it, but the real tool will. Or one of the two. I think there's really like two. And I don't know if I'm purposely just trying to be really hush-hush on what those are, but they're expensive or can be expensive, I guess. Yeah, one of these days. None of the other stuff will do it.
I had a Mitsubishi that not a single tool I owned would do a key on this stupid old Eclipse. You want to know what did it? And I had to borrow this tool and they made sure to give me some shit from it because I borrowed it from one of my shops. It was a freaking Snap-on because I don't own one.
Red brick?
No, it wasn't even red. I mean, it was just like old Solus. But yeah, it'll do the key on this old Mitsubishi and not a single. And I got a lot of key tools at this point and it's like nothing would do this key if Snap-on did it. I'm like, what? Credit to Ben Jameson. He gave me that tip. But the shop that I bought it from, which I programmed for and all this stuff, they give me so much crap, understandably so. I was like, hey, can I use your Snap-on?
So now every time you're over there to program something, they walk over at the Solus going, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, I've bought a lot of tools to do one car. Or worse, the just in case.
Yeah, I might see this one.
I'm pretty sure we will run into this. And then just wait.
All of my friends on Facebook have been dealing with this, so I know they're coming. Yeah, no one owns one in the tri-state area.
For good reason, too.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They're smart. I'm not. I know. I tried to be smart, seemingly, when I bought the Key Tool Plus, because that was supposed to be multiple in one.
The tablet?
Yeah, it's a tablet. I had Prague already, VVDI Prague already, but, I was wrestling with, geez, am I going to get VVDI2? Am I going to get VVDI MB? How about BIM Tool Pro? It's like, what am I going to do? Oh, this is all of those in one. I don't know if it's technically BIM Tool Pro, but it was definitely supposed to be Prague 2 and MB all in one. And Pedro bought one too. And if he can't make his work, there's no chance I'm going to get mine to work. So yeah, I got that and that was not cheap. It could have been worse. And I ended up buying the other stuff anyways. So, just doubled up. And I bought the Multi-Prog, which that stupid thing, that had me convinced I was going to do this BMW trans clone. No. X-Prog looked like it was going to do it. And it would read the EEPROM. There's another area, like I think it's just the flash, or there's two flashes it reads, and there's the second flash. It says it read it, but if you looked at the file itself, it was 0 kilobytes. So that happened with pretty much every tool I had. And then I acquired online a FC200, and that stupid thing did it. Just like nothing. What the hell? Yeah, that's why I'm broke.
Well, tooling, there's more terminology too for all these different things like FC200, VVDI, Prog, BIM tool, X-Prog, Hex-Prog, AutoHex. Like, wait, which one is
AutoHex 2.
Yeah.
Hex-Prog 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, board level in general. Start getting...
I mean, if you don't have a TL866, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
We can't be friends.
Yeah. It's just a non-starter. Everybody needs to have one of those in their arsenal. I think I technically have a Mercedes SIM 4LE. The stupid TL866 will do the EEPROM with the immobilizer in it.
Okay.
M24F 400 BB.
That's the chip?
I think it's 40 pin.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I have to do it out of circuit.
AR32.
Well, that's a must-have.
That's a good one.
Well, how many freaking times does Pedro post about something where he's fighting something? He's doing something on a car and he's got the real tools, I suppose I'm kind of saying sarcastically, but these are not inexpensive investments for the type of work, tuning, cloning, that type. And I guess you'd say just the big boy tools. Like you're plunking down a good bit of money. He has them. And then he's got whatever vehicle or whatever module. He's got to do whatever. And it's AR32 for the win. It's just over and over and over. And then you got jerks like Brian Pollock who can somehow read in circuit with an Autel XP400. And I can't. AR32 reads no problem. Not stupid Autel, but I couldn't get it to read in circuit to save my life. I can do it out of circuit. Works great.
It's been hit or miss.
Heck, the software is a lot easier to use.
Yeah, well, yeah, no kidding. The AR32 is a little ways away from a touchscreen.
A little bit. You can't even really use a mouse with it. I think it's just all arrows. And then Pollock will send me like 3 videos of like read in circuit with this. No problem. It's like, what are you doing different than me?
Yeah, it's been hit or miss for me, but mostly miss for in-circuit Autel. Mostly miss.
I don't have a problem with it. Like when it works, I don't mean that like facetiously. Just usually you got to read it out of circuit and then it works. It just does what it's supposed to do. And I've jacked around with the voltages and everything. And just, I know I'm not the only one.
That's my go-to most of the time is take the chip off. Like a lot of time I won't even try. I had one the other day where for whatever reason, the amount of heat that I needed to get this chip loose, and I suppose I could have been using the chip quick or whatever, but like I was like, I'm getting this board really hot. Like, okay, stop. It did it in circuit. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I should have started with that then.
There's been 2 modules with components, and I think both were EPROMs. It's almost like the solder gets hardened or galvanized, or if it gets heat cycled or brought up to a certain temp, where it gets insanely difficult to get it to flow and you're almost forced. I've added regular solder to see if it would help, but it's finally gotten down to the chip quick.
Yeah, I found that interesting that some, it's just like, how can this be? Like some of them you hit them for like 10 seconds and then it's just, it's off. And then other ones like the freaking module's starting to turn red. And I'm like, well, when is this thing coming off?
It's got the rosebud under it. It's funny you bring that up because my boss brought me into the office and I thought he was going to fire me, but he was showing me on KBID somebody went out of business or was clearing out some stuff and a bunch of Hakko soldering stations and rework stations and all that. I bought a board heater.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah. For I think 1/3 of brand new. So it probably doesn't work. I'll plug it in and it won't work, but I'm kind of excited about that. I'm not going to need it for, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 years, but
you warm up your lunch at least.
It smells so good in here. I'm just trying out the new board heater.
Got to make use of these tools somehow.
You know what? I went to a class. I saw it used. It was really cool.
I got some hot tweezers from Hakko and I have not utilized them to their full potential yet, but nice idea.
Yeah, I don't think I have them yet, but they look cool. So the other thing I got was I have a 2-channel Hakko. Gosh, I don't know. Is it 208 or something? I don't remember. But it's a 2-channel Hakko rework station. You're going to have one. I guess if you want 2 soldering irons, you're going to have 2 soldering irons. And one could be, like you said, the tweezers. But another thing I got on the same auction was a 4-channel one. So I only really use 1 channel on the 2. So definitely I needed 4. But it'll look cool. When I get my desk all cleared off and I get that stuff set up for that one photo moment, it'll look so cool. It'll so look like I know what I'm doing. It'll be great. People will be like, wow, that Matt Fanslow, man, he really knows his stuff. He just buys all the tools.
He's got 4 channels on that thing.
He's got more channels on his soldering station than I have in my scope. I just buy all the stuff. I don't know how it works. It's compensating. It's like all those scan tools, just compensating for lack of ability.
One of these tools will solve it for me.
Right. I just keep plugging stuff in. Something, somewhere will do something.
Yeah. Something. mash buttons until something happens. That's half of my day.
Yeah, I kid you not. There's one of my sayings. What's the worst that could happen?
Yep.
Yeah. Then FAFO.
Yep. I tell my guys a lot that too. Or like, I can't see the tool. I'm not there. I'm like, I don't know. You're just going to have to poke around in there and see what happens. Cause that's how I would figure it out.
Another dangerous thing I say is one way or the other. Do you think you could do this? Do you think I bought this truck? I think it has a tune in it. Do you think you could? One way or another.
Something will happen.
One way or another. If I pay somebody enough money, they will help me out. Can you get the keys programmed to this Freelander? One way or another.
Is it that blue thing you had at your shop? Got that all figured out at some point or another?
It cost a lot of money, but yes.
Okay. One way or another.
Yes. And then they didn't want the car anymore, even though they agreed to everything. Nothing was done without approval. And yet, they heard the car run. You would think that would have been a joyful thing. I think they had been without the vehicle for quite some time, so I thought they'd be excited to get it back. And they were not. But it worked.
Yeah. I had a Toyota that had been sitting for 3 years without running, and we had to go through quite a bit to get it going. Finally did. Well, at least to the point where it would crank and then clunk, and it was locked up motor. So then the customer took it from the shop at that point. They didn't want to fix it.
Yeah, that's a thing. Used car stores or lots, whatever, they'll buy something and they don't know if it...
Yeah, at the auction, just say, okay, that one looks good.
Yep. God, it's too cheap. If I can get this running, wow, I could sink all this money into it and still turn a profit. And then you get it and somebody knew.
Oh, yeah.
Then I think it just goes back on the auction.
Yeah, sometimes they run through there 3-4 times.
I don't know if we covered anything.
I don't know if it helps anybody to know that things are confusing.
All I know is I really enjoyed myself.
That's all that counts.
If I could be narcissistic for just a minute, I had a great time.
Hopefully somebody learned at least one term that they weren't aware of prior to this.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know I learned a few things. One of them being I have a long ways to go.
I don't want to mess with a badger, or at least bring my dog if I do. That's what I learned today.
Yeah. Bush mowing is dangerous on farms or by collapsed buildings. I had a similar issue with that. It was not mowing, but I got home and we don't have a garage. Well, you know, when I lived with my parents, we didn't have a garage. We had a machine shed, and the machine shed fit everything in it, machinery and cars. So I pulled in one night. There was a possum, and usually they are not jerks, right? They run for the hills or just plop. They just plop over. You could say they play dead, but my understanding is they're not really actually, okay, clearly they're not dead, but it's a involuntary response.
I got a possum story.
Oh, cool. But this one was not. This one was mean. So it could have been Rabbit and a different dog, but he was getting mixing up with it. And it's like, well, yeah, that thing's Rabbit. I don't need him messing around with the freaking thing either. So now I'm over there with a pitchfork and I'm not trying to stab it. And I didn't stab it. But I'm trying to like get a hold of it and do my best hockey shot. Maybe not slap shot, but
give it a little wrister.
Yeah, there, exactly. Yeah. I wasn't trying to like slap shot the thing, but I was trying to just eject him at least closer to the door. It would have been I would have had to slap shot him to get him out the door, but a good wrister and yeah, 2 good wristers. I got him out of the building and then he plopped over. And then it's like, what do you do? But then I find out possums, I don't think can have rabies.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
So I still don't know why it was acting that way because I've never seen that before. And yes, it absolutely was a possum. Ugly freaking thing.
Yeah, you can't mistake those. They are so ugly. It saw you, it was like, I don't have to be scared of this guy.
Yeah, because usually that's what they would do is just plop and then you could just grab them by the tail and toss them somewhere because you have quite a long time. And now I'd probably be even more brave around them now that I know they really can't carry rabies. So, but yeah, this whole time I'm dealing with this thing and I think I'm in high school or just out of high school. So it's like, oh, I thought it had rabies, that it was being so aggressive.
Sure.
But I don't know, maybe there's babies nearby and it was like trying to be like a bear. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't grow up around them. Like, so I don't think I'd ever like been face to face with one, but at my old house, I let my dog out and there's like a chain link run where we just had the dogs outside, and it was night. I let my dog out, my Blab, and I see her just dart to the back of the run and snarl, and there's some tussle going on. And I'm like, oh shoot, it must have been a rabbit or something. So I go into the run to see what's going on. And when I get there, she's like standing over this possum who's just like, he's got his tongue hanging out and everything. And from what I heard and everything, and she's just sort of just like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, she must have killed the thing. And like they emit some, I don't know if it's a pheromone or something. Maybe it's a scent where it's meant for the predator, the dog, to just give up. Like, oh, okay, it's dead, whatever. And my dog believed it, and I believed it because I'm a dumbass. And I think the thing is dead. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go get a shovel. And I was talking to my wife. I'm like, hey, Rep killed a possum. And I go back out there with a shovel, and the thing's gone. And I'm just like, oh, it like hit me at that point. I'm like, that's what they do. Okay, he got me.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to have you on again. We'll have more wildlife stories.
Yeah. The upper Midwest wildlife with Matt and Sean.
Yeah.
Those goddamn red squirrels.
I don't have any bear stories. I've seen bears in the wildlife, not in, I guess, one black bear in Minnesota. Not in a zoo either. I probably should have been more scared than I was.
Yeah, a couple bears in Wisconsin.
Montana and Glacier Park saw some grizzlies. I don't want to imply it was like super close. They were a ways off, but man, just big animals.
We stayed in a yurt, and I don't know, it's like a weird cabin-y tent type of deal up in Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere. And like you had to put your stuff in a bear box because they were wandering around. And for whatever reason, like, I think it was just because of all the signs of like, hey, be cautious of bears. Like, don't you leave your stuff out. I was like really on edge that whole trip. Like, we're guaranteed we're going to see a bear, like walk. Cause you had to walk a really long distance to get to this yurt. You couldn't just pull up to it with your car. And yeah, we never saw anything. So
I don't think they seek us out.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. That winds up my wildlife stories for now that I can think of. For adventure.
Yeah, not too much more for me.
I guess we'll wrap this up. I think we have to work tomorrow.
Yeah, that sucks.
Kids have spring break. Well, you don't get spring break. You could have spring break. You own the place.
I had spring break at the college. I gave that up.
Yeah, probably a good move. I think we'll just end it on that. Really appreciate you coming on, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Always a blast. Hopefully one of these years you can either bomb down with us to Vision, or we'll at least meet you down there.
Yeah, I'll probably make it next year.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, NAPA Autotech Training, for sponsoring, and thank you to the Aftermarket Radio Network. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Matt Fanslow, diagnosing the aftermarket A to Z on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Matt on your favorite listening app. He's very interested in what you have to say. Let him know what you'd like him to cover and come on the show. Matt is all for advancing the aftermarket. Find Matt Fanslow on social media and connect or on aftermarketradionetwork.com.